Good afternoon and welcome to the Subcommittee on Government Operations meeting of Thursday, April 17th. We had a new version of S119 to look at today, and I'll invite Katie and Glenn to join us at the end of the table and walk us through. Probably the easiest thing is to just focus on the changes that has taken place in your draft. Thank you for joining us, by the way.
Oh, no problem. Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel, for the record. Let me pull out the draft.
We actually have it all printed.
Oh, is that your preference? No, not to have it on the screen. Okay. Great. So this is draft 1.2 that we're looking at with the changes highlighted. So hopefully that should help us move a little bit faster. So we'll scroll down to the bottom of page 1 and you'll see that the title of the chapter has been changed to Early Childhood Educators Employed in Programs Regulated by the Child Development Division. You will see a change similar to this throughout the draft to make it clear that these are not early childhood educators that are working in a public school setting, but they're providers who are working in a program regulated by the CDD.
And that could be home-based or center-based?
Yep, it would cover family childcare homes and center-based programs.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Another change, so I'm scrolling to page 2 now. Another change that you'll be seeing in this draft is there's a new license type to cover family child care homes. In order to account for the fact that this new license type is being created, the membership of the board of early childhood educators is being changed. Instead of having 3 members of the public serving on the board, there'll only be 1, and there'll now be 2 members who are family child care providers, so that each license type is captured. And then we have some changes to accommodate that change in membership. The next set of changes are on page 4. So you will see on lines 2 and 3, the title matches the title that we've already looked at. So I won't spend time there. In subdivision 2, line 8 and 9, we're in our definition section. Early childhood educator means all individuals means an individual licensed under this chapter to provide an early childhood education pursuant to section 6202 of this chapter in a program regulated by CDD. So those 2 changes again are added to specify that we're talking about individuals licensed under this chapter who are not teachers licensed by AOE. They're instead individuals working in a program regulated by CDD. So again, that effort to try to focus on the programs regulated by CDD. New definition is being added here to capture the license type family child care provider. Family child care provider means an individual approved to operate a family child care home regulated by CDD at the time of the application, and who is responsible for providing developmentally appropriate care, education, protection, and supervision for children from birth through 8 years of age in the family child care home. So new license type under early childhood educators. Page 5, scope of practice. We have a change in our lead-in language. Same concept, tying everything back to CDD. An early childhood educator licensed pursuant to this chapter shall provide care and educational instruction to children from birth through 8 years of age in a variety of programs regulated by CDD. And then we get to the bottom of page 5, subdivision 2, an early childhood educator licensed pursuant to this chapter. That doesn't replace anything. I think that was a typo on my part originally. So an early childhood educator licensed pursuant to this chapter does not include exempt teachers licensed by AOE with an early childhood endorsement, early childhood special education endorsement, or elementary education endorsement. So 2 other endorsements added who are not captured under this licensure program. They would be exempt outside of this. Page 6, subsection B, an early childhood educator licensed pursuant to this chapter, again, tying it back to specify that we're talking about folks who are regulated, whose programs are regulated by CDD, shall have the following responsibilities as determined by license type. Then we go into the list of the 4 license types. And there is some clarifying language in each of these to again remove references to a public school setting and also to continue to keep tying back to programs regulated by CDD. So we have an early educator one shall be authorized to be an early childhood education team and a family child care home as defined in Title 33, or a center-based child care and preschool program as defined by DCF and rule for children from birth through 8 years of age. An early childhood educator one shall serve under the supervision of early child care educator 2 and 3, or a teacher who is exempt from this chapter and licensed by AOE with an early childhood education endorsement or new endorsement, early childhood special education endorsement. So that's the change on that line.
Oh, send it away, sorry.
And you may be getting to this, but I'm trying to just make sure that one of the changes was captured around having the early child educator 3 in public locations and kind of a potential licensure of them to be in a public setting by, I know that that was not the intent, but that's kind of how it
So
looked.
let's see when we get there. The effort was made to remove references to public school setting.
Yeah, so, okay.
So I think hopefully we'll get there and hopefully you'll find that it's what you were hoping it would be. Early childhood educator 2, very few changes here. One of the changes that's more substantive is it had said children birth through 5 years of age, it changed birth to 8 years of age. But otherwise, it already had the language tying it into the CDD programs. Early childhood educator 3. So in addition to the responsibilities and authorities under early childhood educator 1 and 2, this person is authorized to be a lead educator in a family child care home, center-based program for children birth through 8 years of age, providing supervision to individuals licensed as an early childhood educator 1 and guidance to individuals licensed as early childhood educator 2. And then in subdivision 4, this is new language. So you're adding this draft adds a new license type. A family child care provider shall be authorized to be a lead educator in a family child care home as defined in statute for children birth through 8 years of age. And the idea, as you know, separating that out is that this licensure type would only be available for a set period of time, after which new individuals entering the field would need to fall into CE 1, 2, or 3. Okay. And then in subsection C, an early childhood educator licensed pursuant to this chapter may serve in a supporting role only and not as a lead educator in the provision of pre-K services. This is a cross-reference to what we colloquially call universal pre-K, but it's not called that in the statute.
Nor is it universal.
Yeah. Okay. So that brings us to 6203 prohibitions, no changes there. Page 8, 6204 exemptions. There is new language and a new exemption listed. So our lead-in is that the provisions of this chapter shall not apply to the following persons acting within the scope of their respective professional practices. The first is a teacher actively licensed under Title 16 by AOE with the early childhood education endorsement, and then the 2 other endorsements that we've been listing along with them. So the early childhood special education endorsement or an elementary education endorsement. The new
Katie, what page are you on?
I'm on page 8.
Thank you.
Exemption. Yep. So subdivision A2, line 10. An individual who provides care in an after-school childcare program that is regulated by the CDD or any other childcare program that is exempt from regulation by the CDD. So there is a carve out there. Those folks wouldn't need a license under this chapter. And then that brings us to page 9, qualifications. So again, tying in the language about CDD and section 6221 lines 6 and 7 to qualify for licensure as an early childhood educator in a program regulated by CDD. So it's being clear that these the license applies in these particular types of programs. And then we go down the list beginning on line 12 of all the different license types. You'll see that there's a recommendation to add or related fields to the degree program, that it doesn't necessarily have to be an early childhood education degree. It could be a related field. I understand from OPR that they might be proposing to fine tune that to open it up to individuals in an unrelated field. So I think you'll hear from them on that more directly.
Okay.
Page 10 is our new license type, the family child care provider. So this provider shall currently operate a family child care home that is regulated and in good standing with CDD as of January 1st, 2028. And the board shall not accept family child care provider applications after January 1, 2028. So that is a language that makes this time limited, that the applications can come in up to a certain point, and these would be the legacy or grandfathering the folks who are already operating a family child care home. And after January 1, 2028, individuals would receive would have to pursue a different type of license type. License renewal. So we have language here that a license shall be renewed every 2 years upon application and a fee. Failure to comply will result in suspension of privileges under the license. A license that has lapsed shall be reinstated upon payment of the biennial renewal fee and the late renewal penalty, except the family child care provider license shall not be renewed after a lapse of 2 or more years. So if a person comes in and they have they're a legacy provider, they've been operating a family child care home, they got their license to be a family child care provider before January 1, 2028. And then they've been renewing it every 2 years, and then they decide to take a 3-year break from serving as a family child care provider. Their license has lapsed for more than 2 years. They could not come back in as a family child care provider. They would have to pursue one of the other 3 license types at that point. Let's see. Okay, fees. I am on page 11. So because there's a new license type, there's corresponding language about this license type and the fees. The application for the initial license is $175. The top of page 12, biennial renewal, is $250. And that brings us down to the bottom of page 12, variance and transitional licensure. So there was a lot of conversation about extending the ability to have a variance or a transitional license from 6 years to 8 years. So that is happening here. And there's also language to continue to keep tying the program back to CDD. So the board is to issue a transitional license to a teacher or director operating a registered or licensed family childcare home as defined in Title 33, or licensed center-based childcare programs as defined by DCF and rule, who does not meet the educational requirements, etc. Transitional licenses shall be valid for a 2-year period and shall be renewed by the board for otherwise qualified applicants. They have to have met the other qualifications. On page 13, subsection B, at the conclusion of 3 2-year transitional periods instead of 2, the person can apply for 1 final 2-year transitional license from otherwise qualified applicant. That's what gets us to the 8 years. Okay, there's a new section, disclosure by licensees. So an early childhood educator who's licensed under this chapter, that would encompass all 4 license types, shall post and provide to current and prospective families the following: all available license types regulated by OPR pursuant to this chapter, a description of OPR's regulatory authority over licensees in the program regulated by CDD and how to make complaints, a description of AOE's regulatory authority over teachers providing pre-K services under Universal Pre-K and how to make complaints, and lastly, a description of the Child Development Division's regulatory authority over regulated childcare programs and how to make complaints. At the bottom of page 13, top of page 14, this language relates to the variances. It had read that the provision expired 2033, but because you extended from 6 to 8 years, there's a 2-year bump out on that. And then we get into appropriations. Before we get into appropriations, there had been a section amending Title 33, changing the word, I think, provider to program. My understanding is that CDD is going to need to make a number of conforming changes if this were to be enacted. And so they are aware of that and may come with a package at some point instead of doing it on a more piecemeal basis. Okay, section 5. So here is our appropriation language. Subsection A deals with fiscal year 26. Subsection B deals with fiscal year 27. So in fiscal year 26, the 2 new permanent positions are authorized in OPR. 1 full-time classified executive officer in the Vermont Board of Early Childhood Educators, and 1 full-time exempt staff attorney. And the appropriation for that is $262,000. And subsection B, again, this is fiscal year 27, establishes 3 new permanent positions: a full-time classified licensing staff, classified enforcement staff, classified administrative staff. And the cost for that in 27 is $628,867. And then in subsection C, we have language that money that is in fiscal year 27, 1.4 million, that is part of the CCFAP appropriation would be distributed to OPR to cover the first licensure and licensure renewal fees for all early childhood educators who are serving in a CDD program and who would need a license under this. So the first license and licensure renewal would be covered by the CCFAP appropriation. And then we have effective dates. I don't think those have changed too much besides my numbering. And then I've changed the name of the bill to reflect that as programs regulated by CDD. I'm seeing on line 15, I have the word serving, which I was asked to get rid of. So I would suggest that on line 15, instead of serving, we say something like, just be silent, educators in programs or employed in programs. And that's it.
Questions for Katie?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, because we needed to address the legacy, the people were gonna continue in this. Well, we've got necessarily do an EC of any variety. So this is, I'm so grateful that we have an opportunity for them to continue. Thank you for helping create it. And I'm just curious, the appropriations are new, but we've needed this money to set up these programs from the beginning. Why? Did we just not figure this out at the beginning, or were they just less?
I think that's more properly asked.
Yeah, there initially the draft you have has 5 positions going into effect all at the same time. This tiers when the position.
Tiers, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. It reduces our immediate cost for FY 26. Thank you. Okay.
I think you're off the hook now.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Katie.
Relishes the whole.
No, I don't. I don't.
You did a great job.
You did.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much, and thank you for this work. We really appreciate it.
So Lauren, if you want to take the chair, we can.
Sure, can I bring Jen and Colin up?
Of course.
Can I join? Okay.
You'll have to bring a chair. I think.
That's okay, we already came in and made a big clam already, so I'm sorry about that.
So I guess I have an overall question. I've tried to pay strict attention, as Katie did a great job walking through that. If I ran a thing now, Brian's bunch of fun kids, daycare, and I have, I don't know, I'm trying to remember the highest number of kids, the greatest number of kids, 4, 5, whatever it is.
2 families.
2 families and 4 kids, 2 families and 5 kids.
It's 2 families plus your own, so there's no limitation, I don't think, as to the.
Oh, okay. So let's just say I have 2 kids and
there's four of us, anyway. What I'm understanding with the revised bill is that I can now, for 8 years, continue to operate the way I have been operating. And that's all here. There may be a fee that I didn't pay before.
If I may,
Sure.
Lauren Hibbert, Deputy Secretary of State, I think there's two things happening here. One is if you have two families, you're exempt from CDD regulation, or you're regulated in a different way. So, you never were part of this bill.
Okay.
But what is being created is that family child care provider role. I don't know, maybe Jen knows off the top of her head how many kids you can have in a family child care program, but we're creating a pathway for that type of provider that's currently out there. Currently, the facility is regulated by CDD, to be able to get this new fourth credential that we've created, the legacy path. And you will be eligible for that from July 1st, 2027 to January 1st, 2028. So there's a 6-month application window. And then after that, you would be able to hold that credential and renew that credential for the remainder of your lifetime.
Oh,
You don't have to, you're not on the transitional path.
oh,
Um,
okay.
we would want you, and I'm sure the community would want you to become an ECE 1, 2, or 3, and there'll be lots of incentives, and the disclosure will say, I'm on this fourth path, not the 1, 2, or 3 path. And I think over time, there'll be market initiative to become one of the ECE credentials, but you'd have time to make that decision. We're not forcing anybody to do that. So you're one of those providers, and this bill is passed as currently written. You get to decide, do I want a transitional license to become an ECE 2? That's what most of them would want or be qualified for through the transitional path. And if you chose that, you'd apply for the ECE 2 transitional pathway, and you would have 8 years to get the qualifications. Or you could get the family child care provider pathway, and you could hold that credential for the duration of time.
Senator Clux.
So what would really help us is a visual. Because that's a lot of opportunities, charts and timeframes.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be really helpful, particularly for our colleagues on the floor as we present this.
Side by side.
What?
A side by side is what you said.
No, not a side by side, a visual of if this, then that, like legacy, have it all in columns and show the flow and what's the opportunity, what's the timeline. Do you know?
You are in luck. We have something in draft form that we can provide for you. And then you can provide us feedback on agreement.
It would help me just now with what you said, because how does the trend, so the family care providers, their definition makes it unclear how many kids they can take.
They can take up to, I believe it's 10, depending upon age. Depending on age and whether they have a family child care assistant there. But registered family child care homes can have up to 10.
And that's really defined, Senator Clarkson, by CDD's rules. That's why it's not in the definition in this bill, because CDD is regulating the facility, and that's a facility.
Right, and this is our challenge, is we're moving, transitioning, as it were, from facility regulation.
We'll keep facility registration
Yeah.
and regulation, and we're creating a professional path on the individual level.
To individually regulate.
Right.
Senator Bielanski.
With this proposal of this sort of indefinite legacy license, is there any competency requirement or oversight of that license?
Yes, so we would be providing the oversight of that license, and the competency requirements, speaking of charts, I've been in the process of creating a chart that shows all the qualifications of current roles. And so the minimal qualification for a registered family child care provider is a 45-hour fundamentals for early childhood professionals training series. And so that's a 45-hour course that's focused primarily on foundational health and safety. Plus, the CDD requires them to have a 9-hour orientation where they're covering also some safety topics. There's first aid, CPR, and they also have to be background checked. So, that's the very minimum qualification. There's going to be a workforce report that's coming out soon, and I've been speaking with CDD about that report coming out, and I think what we're going to see in that report is that there are many folks in this role already who have associate's degrees or higher. I mean, a significant number. So hopefully we'll get that data soon and we'll see how many people are going to be able to just come in at an ECE2 regular license. They won't even need the transitional license. How many people will likely be wanting that transitional license, and then we'll have a better sense of how many folks are at that 45-hour kind of minimal training requirement. So there are requirements and lots of pathways with lots of different requirements, but that's the minimum for the registered family child care home.
And then we would provide oversight on the ongoing basis with complaints and enforcement process. And there also would be required continuing education.
Okay, thank you.
So on page 9, line 16, and Katie did a good job of explaining that you possibly, the yellow portion says board a field. So if someone has an associate's degree in sociology or something that's not directly tied to education, are you sort of still tinkering with that sort of thing?
Yes.
Okay.
And we also are thinking about whether there's any way we can create a pathway for someone who has a completely unrelated associate's degree or unrelated bachelor's degree. Like, let's say I got my bachelor's degree in chemistry. But what would be required for me to get into this field? And that's something that we're still talking about with CDD and also NACI.
So my only other question right now, on page 11, we're looking at the fees. So the initial application is 175, which is the same as an EC2. And I'm just wondering, for people that are kind of easing into this, if you're really firm on that number, or could we go back to what you're going to charge EC1?
Well, when we were talking about this internally, Senator, what we were saying is we didn't want to create a financial incentive for someone to choose the path that we don't actually want them to be on. Our goal is to get everyone on who is in this group to be an ECE 2.
Okay.
And that's why we're creating such a long pathway. So we didn't want there to be a financial incentive to choose the pathway. We wanted it to be equal.
Okay.
Whether or not the initial license for ECE 2 should be $175, I think that's a policy decision. We came up with these numbers, quite frankly, because this is based on the numbers of people currently in the field and our estimates of how much it will cost to regulate the profession. We thought these fees were the minimum necessary.
So on the last page, or maybe the second last page, second to last page, the 1.4 million that you're asking for, and that won't be our decision, that will be somewhere else. Would not the fees cover some of that? In other words, you're asking for 1.4 to sort of open it up and get it going.
No, that 1.4 what we would do is we'd open up these 4 credentials probably 45 days before July 1st, 2027, and people would start applying. And instead of paying $175, they would pay $0. And we would use these funds to subsidize the cost of licensure for the individual. So the individual would pay nothing for the first 4 years of this regulation.
Okay.
Just to get them to ease and
To help
parent.
It's to help transition them, because we understand and the money is there. And it's for the purpose of early childhood education. And we are professionalizing and licensing it's a new thing. So we thought it was appropriate that the state use its funds that are dedicated for early childhood education in this way, just like they are for education and other things and subsidy, so that people will become licensed. It's not a barrier, and then
Okay.
it'll build.
Senator Clarkson.
I'm sorry, Sarah, can I in the room when I ask this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Of the anticipated $94 million in revenue from our employee, our tax. It's the appropriate music only payroll, our payroll tax for child care. Is this not an appropriate expenditure for that to help? If this is absolutely related to that work. Is that not something that might come out of that?
That is intent, that is the child care financial
That's
assistance
what
program.
I would have thought, but because that now comes into the general fund, is that right? That money comes into the general fund.
It's siloed. My understanding is it's siloed, and there are requests out of it for the general fund, but our position, and I believe Let's Grow Kids' position, is at least 1.4 of that fund should remain, and probably their position is more than that, but at least this 1.4 should go to help these individuals in childcare
Good work.
get licensed at zero cost to them for the first 4.
We're on the same page. Good. Good. It seems to me that's what this is in part for. Yes, great.
Does anyone else have questions for either Laura or Jen? What I'm hoping is I made pretty clear, I think all the way through, is that we'll hear from AOE, because I'm sure there's still maybe a bump in the road over on that side of things. And then the legacy folks, I mean, it'd be great if all three, including OPR, would come and say, this is as good as we can get it, and let's move on kind of thing. I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but I'm still getting a lot of email that says, that's why I tried to send that draft out as quickly as I could to give people a chance to read it. I mean, guess what? We're not gonna take a vote today anyway, because we've got to pass the OPR bill too, but I'm just hoping if somebody's listening or watching, that they'll be back in touch with us to say, we agree with, provision X, Y, and Z, but we still have concerns.
So, Mr. Chair, can I ask Jen
Sure.
to talk about her conversation with Giovanni, who you did hear from?
Yes.
Because I think some of what we've proposed is a direct result of that.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. So I did share with him that we were working on this legacy pathway, and obviously he was very supportive of that. And he was also concerned about folks with degrees in unrelated fields, which is again something that we're also working on. Trying to think after school. Oh, right. And so one of the changes that I think is in here in this new draft is that, in section 6204 on page 8, line 10, that we're specifically exempting after-school childcare programs that are regulated by CDD. That was never really our intention to be in that space. And it was just an oversight on my part that we didn't include it in a earlier draft. So I think those are 3 of his big concerns, and certainly we let him know that we would be happy to have conversation anytime. So we've engaged with folks who reach out to us. We certainly want to engage and also hear from them. So I understand that you're getting emails. And you're certainly welcome to direct folks to me, because I'm happy to have conversations and hear ideas, because as Giovanni saw, we're directly having feedback into this bill based on that.
Yeah. What makes it really challenging is there's not sort of an association of legacy providers right now with 2 or 3 people that could come in and offer testimony. They're kind of like all over the place. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just, there's no organizational structure for people that are already operating in that space, and it makes it hard.
Well, we do have an organization that represents, I believe you do represent the home care providers as well. But I think what we've experienced is folks who may not have been a part of the total process.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, I think that is the.
Yeah, but you're right.
And then there is one umbrella that they're regulated under. They all come under the umbrella of the CDC to be regulated. So they all are somewhere.
Yeah.
In one place.
And we have actually had a lot of conversations with CDD. They are telling there are folks who are in the field at these family child care homes every day to please let folks know they can reach out to OPR, give them my email address. And I haven't gotten a lot of feedback. So
Okay.
we are constantly checking in with CDD to understand what they're hearing from the field.
Okay,
And then in terms of the agency of education and the education associations, we did give a high level preview of the amendments that we would be seeking, obviously not in this formalized draft to them, I think earlier this week. And we heard feedback, particularly around the name. But I think outside of the name, not substantial feedback, although I could go back and look at my emails. And I think that's where we are.
okay. So I want to invite, if everybody here is all set with OPR folks, we'll have them play musical chairs again.
Thank you.
And Sam and Erica, do you want to come up together?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah Cameron from the Vermont School Boards Association and Erica McLaughlin from, I call it the VPA, the
Yeah.
Vermont Principals
Perfect.
Association.
We have a PowerPoint for you, but
One of these. You're part of these.
easier for you to just review this way.
Thank
Do you mind?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, one more. Oh, and we'll send this because there's hyperlinks attached.
Right.
You send it to Jillian if you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. So for the record, Erica McLaughlin, assistant, sorry, you were going to start. Assistant Executive Director at Vermont Principals Association. Prior to that, I was principal 17 years in Randolph, in your area. It was an honor and a privilege to be there. Prior to that, I was a teacher in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and a preschool teacher also at a private daycare, childcare. And also, just to give you some more context about me, I've been a school board member and I'm on the board for BBF and for Prevent Child Abuse Vermont. So my entire adult life has been in support of children with education at the forefront of my work. So just a little bit about myself, given that I haven't had a chance to chat with you before.
Thank you for service.
Hi, I'm
Hi.
Sandra Cameron, Associate Executive Director with the Vermont School Boards Association. Similar to Erica, prior to this position, I also was working with young children. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. I did that for 20 years in homes, daycares, and school setting. And then started working in the school setting when I earned the license of early childhood educator. And then became an administrator and was Vermont's first regional Act 166, which is UPK, coordinator for, at the time, 11 supervisory unions. So I have been working with young children and their families for over 20 years.
So the next slide is a really a great place to start because as you just heard, we did have our chat in the cafeteria and they're really, from my perspective, this could be very simple for our associations to sort of really get on board. There's like two areas that I think are significant from our perspective in terms of needing to be adjusted. So the first page 2, your second slide, really is about what we are valuing and what we support. So I just want to give you a moment to read that slide so that you can see that we actually have a lot that we are appreciating about the work that's being done in terms of elevating the field, credentialing people so that they have a higher level of knowledge as they engage with children. And I'll just pause so you can take a look. If you have questions regarding our support, I'd love to give you the opportunity to ask.
Your choice of words.
Yeah, it's significant. And so that brings us to the other point of the two areas that we find that we would appreciate some compromise or agreement on is the name. Early childhood educator is in statute already. It's in law under the Agency of Education. It's in Rule 2600. It's also noted in the CBD as an AOE licensed title. It has meaning to families. As a principal, I know that. I have hired early childhood educators my entire career as a principal. It has meaning to families already. I don't believe a disclosure is actually, I appreciate the idea, but it is not going to be clear to families. And I can
say that because we use so much education jargon that a posting is going to be lost on a parent. Yeah.
Senator Wait first.
Thank you, Chair Calmore, and I appreciate the difference. I think policy wise, I totally respect both of your experiences. I'm comfortable with the use of the word educator. Obviously, that's an opinion. I hear the term, and I hear what you're saying. I do think in some way the term educator has been watered down colloquially anyway. Like I've gone to VINS and I've had a teenager who's a wildlife educator.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways that the term educator is already being colloquially used, and has kind of in some way watered it down anyway. So I do feel comfortable with the educator piece, but I totally respect and appreciate, and I am grateful for you coming to the place with compromise on a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
Is your proposal to go to professional rather than educator? Is that the proposal?
The word they use is practitioner.
It could
Right,
be,
there's a couple different options.
we give a list of options: early child provider, early child practitioner, early child professional. So it really is about creating a title that really separates itself from the agency's license. And I love that you asked for a chart. So there is a side by side for you in this as well. And it is about providing clarity, right, around what those levels are. And we'll get to that in a moment. But the other area that I feel could be simply addressed, and then we would be out of your hair, essentially, is really to consider we already have an early childhood educator license within the Agency of Education.
Yeah.
And so we're creating a duplicative efforts and creating more unnecessary red tape, so to speak, when if this proposal could really just focus on what they're calling ECE 1 and ECE 2, though I would like to see it early childhood practitioner or provider or whatever, do that 1 and 2, stay in that lane, and leave early childhood educator 3 to the agency where system is already established. We don't need a duplicative process. As a taxpayer, I don't want to see us paying more taxes. I don't want to pay more taxes
Me too.
for a duplicative process, right? Agreed.
If I can respond to respectfully to the concern about lots of folks using the term educator, I think the difference is the license, and in many places in statute and in rules in Vermont, the term licensed educator refers to an AOE license. And so now if there's another route, another pathway toward an educator license, it leaves the law ambiguous, and that is a big concern of ours. If I can just explain a couple more pages of information that you have in front of you.
The cute child.
Yeah, the one that looks like this. I don't know if you know that there is a pathway
I think
already.
it's at VINS or something.
Might be,
It
yeah.
looks like it. I
Um,
love her t-shirt. Future leader.
Community College of Vermont runs a program called Northern Lights Early Childhood Career Ladder.
Yeah, this is so small, I can't read it, so it's lovely that you've included it. but
We're
it's
gonna send it
way-
to you with a link. And
Okay.
that chart, that they call it certification, the levels, start from what you just heard about the fundamentals class, the 45 hours, and each level earns a reward. So at that level 1, where you've completed the fundamentals class to work in a licensed childcare program, you get $300 for doing that. The levels and the amounts increase as folks move through different credentialing and different qualifications. At a level 4A, someone with a bachelor's degree, the bonus is $3,000. $3,000 that they could use toward a license, right? To move toward a license. So I just wanted to point that out. A level 4B is where you now have that bachelor's degree and you've earned an AOE license. And I will share with you all that all of these bonuses, all these awards are not available to educators working in a public school. These are only available to folks working in private programs. So there is financial support already, steps in place through Northern Lights Career Ladder, which is through Community College of Vermont.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great.
It is, we helped do it. It's
Yeah.
very exciting.
The next slide, which talks about the message to the early childhood field from NAEYC, the National Association of the Education of Young Children, talks about their work and their campaign around power to the profession and elevating the workforce. Their second draft in this leveling process is still under draft. And in fact, I couldn't find anything on their website. Looks like this, Senator.
Oh, so the next batch.
Sorry,
More
we should have said.
Oh, I have a magnifier.
Yes.
Very useful.
Very helpful.
NAPI's website doesn't show any updates to their leveling work since 2019. And we couldn't find any evidence that any state has moved forward with this leveling. So this is a national organization working on this campaign. It seems to have a pause in the work right now. The next slide that shows NACI's Code of Ethics. We're all, any of us that are early childhood educators are working under these Code of Ethics. And 2.5 says that providers will inform families with complete, honest, and non-biased information concerning the program's enrollment, philosophy, policies, curriculum, assessment, cultural practices, and personnel qualifications. So with a system that now may have titles in two different pathways, same title, different qualifications, that does not seem to align with NACI's Code of Ethics. And I just wanted to highlight that for you.
Why?
Yeah,
Because it's not complete, honest. It's not complete and honest around personnel qualifications. Same title, different qualifications.
So if you look at the next slide, I'm happy to explain why that.
We're going to show you in a visual.
Interpret that. So this chart. The chart indicates what an AOE, early childhood education, ECE 1, the AOE, early childhood education level 2. So those titles already exist. And that's where Sandra's making the point of, if you said to a private provider, if I'm a private provider and I say I have an ECE 1, it's not transparent in terms of which regulating body I hold that license from. It's not clear.
And the differences, major differences, are around what we just heard. Right now, there's new language that it could be a related or maybe an unrelated field, and the title would still apply. These individuals would not have gone through the praxis exam, which is an important step that demonstrates a competency around knowledge and understanding of really important aspects of early childhood education. And then the ongoing professional development and evaluation that's required for AOE licensed educators is missing here.
So this chart is a side-by-side of what the Agency of Education license requires in order for them to have that license versus what's being proposed in S119. And again, we are super pleased with elevating that profession. It's just the confusion around title. There really is a challenge around that. And the duplicative nature of the ECE3 already being regulated under the Agency of Education. So again, from our perspective, 2 simple adjustments would really clear up and create more transparency for families and communities and educators.
This next slide is just an outline of OPR's many professions that are regulated. I hold a license through OPR. That's my occupational therapy license. So I'm on there as well. Their website does note, though, that there are 4 areas that are outside of their jurisdiction, and that is around teachers and educators, and they leave that to the Agency of Education. This is a place I just wanted to share because I've heard some of the testimony over the last few weeks around if you've earned a title, if you've earned a degree with a title such as early childhood education, you should be able to use that title. And I just wanted to highlight there are many degrees where you earn your bachelor's degree and you cannot use that title yet. So for example, my daughter's going to graduate with a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's not a psychologist yet. She still needs to pass a national exam, pursue higher education, right? There are many professions where you've got to go a little bit further beyond that bachelor's degree, especially when they're regulated. There's also many professions that have levels, and those levels, the titles within the leveling, explain to the public a hierarchy and some credentialing. So for example, if you have a certified nurse assistant, that's clear to you, that's not a nurse, it's a nursing assistant. And you have a licensed practical nurse, and you have a registered nurse. In my world, as an occupational therapist, I'm a registered occupational therapist. Someone working under me, under my supervision, is occupational therapy assistant.
Okay.
Someone working under them is a rehab aide. And so the title itself explains that there's a hierarchy and a level of expertise.
depth of knowledge. And I've heard in other testimonies, people understand the importance of that early childhood development. The brain development is significant from birth to 5. And so having people that have a depth of knowledge that can really enhance really does have significant lifelong benefits for those children, but also our society. And so that's why we keep saying we appreciate the regulation and elevating this profession because of the importance of that child development. And we're just asking for there to be some clarity around what those level of qualifications are through the title, and as well as not creating duplicative processes with the ECE3 that's already under regulation of the Agency of Education. So the last page, I can tell you, as a principal, people would come, do you have a minute, and bring me a lot of problems to unpack? And very rarely did anyone come with recommendations. So to that vein, this last slide is to provide you with the acknowledgement that we do appreciate much of the work that's being put into the bill and the efforts for our children of Vermont, but also to provide you with some of our clarity around our concerns, and then of course some recommendations for how those could be easily addressed through adjust amendments in this proposed bill. So we will happily send you again this PowerPoint with hyperlinks. So Senator, you don't have to
That's okay.
use the magnified.
It's okay. I've learned one way to say it.
You have a question?
Yes, Senator Clarkson.
So, first of all, I would say that no one refers to their teachers as educators. They call them teachers. Or they call them Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so. They don't call them educators. I've never actually, they don't call me as a parent an educator, which is what I think we all are. So I think the term educator, it can be broadly used and isn't actually what's used for mostly teachers in schools. They're called professors or they're called teachers. And my understanding is that there is, you don't, would you just be kind enough to share with me what your actual license is named?
Mine?
No, early childhood educators.
Yes.
They're not, my understanding is that the agency does not, what is the name of the license that is issued?
Oh, I think you're getting to, it's a professional educator license with an endorsement in early childhood education.
Right.
Right.
So it's not, the word educator is not actually used in that license. I mean, they're not called, it's not called early childhood educator. It's an education license,
Right.
it's slightly different. So it's not, my understanding is this is not duplicative. My understanding is this is licensing people to teach through whatever grade, whatever age it is.
8 in this proposed. 0 to 8, yeah.
Through age 8 in private settings, not in public schools.
Which is appreciated that was clarified after our meeting in the cafeteria.
So, okay, so fine, it's an evolving bill.
Yeah.
It's all evolving.
Great.
And we're
Just like this conversation will evolve and the House will then work on it. So we can get this into the best shape we can get it. It's an evolving conversation.
Thank you.
And as we discover, all of us who work together over the years, every statute evolves because the minute we set it in the green books, we find something that needs to improve it.
Yeah.
So to that end, I think this is a work in progress and nothing set in stone yet. So for me, this is not duplicative. This is complementary. And really, you should be, I would think it would be fertile ground for you to be recruiting from, actually, having someone else do all the work. So anyway, I appreciate, but I think it isn't duplicative. And I think the term and the term educator is one that can be broadly applied. And I don't think it's mutually exclusive. I think it's and all. So I guess that's sort of how I'm.
Senator White.
Thank you, Chair Collmore, and I agree, Senator Clarkson. And I do, again, really appreciate you coming and speaking to us and providing for this. I think you had one piece that I felt potentially we could maybe do a little more tweaking on, which is the EC3 angle and just being really clear about that. Symbolically, I really do think they should be called educators. They are educating. They are providing knowledge and skills to the youngest people in our system of care. And in the same way that Yeah, I just disagree.
I
And I hear you and I
So if I can
appreciate it.
explain, I can respond.
And I think they'll all be called teachers anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they
Totally
called
fine.
my mom,
Actually,
they called my mom.
right.
You know, like the
Right.
kids don't care.
Yes.
It's really the adults who are making this the
The public deserves the transparency, right? And so in State Board of Ed Rule 2600, which addresses universal pre-K, and let's remember, this bill goes through age 8, beyond pre-K. There is a definition of what a qualified teacher is, and it uses teacher. So by introducing another term, right, of educator through another path with different qualifications, we would want to see, I appreciate the carve out of 16 VSA 829, which addresses that, but this is a bill through grade 3. So we need some protections for kiddos in programs that might be private, might be independent schools, to be very clear about who holds the qualifications, especially around things like literacy development, numeracy development, folks who have related fields or unrelated fields holding a license through grade 3.
Yeah,
The acting
remember,
stuff.
independent schools, well, anyway, it's another whole.
Sure.
I guess, ma'am, I just asked a question of, why it goes to age 8. Why did we make a choice not through, let's say, kindergarten? Because I think there are some things.
The reason is the associate's degree and the bachelor's degree, you are given education from birth to 8. That's what you're being trained on developmentally. I think to respond to the concern that's just on the table, we intentionally put regulated by CDD. So we're intentionally trying to make sure that we are not creating educators where that can be confusing. But if there's an additional space that we should make more clear, then I think certainly we would be interested in hearing about that. I also think the disclosures really do help. I just clarify who is able to be in which spaces.
So to be clear, CDD does regulate UPK in private programs and in public programs. Just so you know, like, again, this is very complex. A chart might help.
But is that not expressly prohibited right now in the prohibitions?
Which part?
The folks who are not intended to be covered by this regulation? Or how could we clarify? I think we have an understanding of who we are trying to regulate.
Right.
And you have a concern about that we're sweeping more people in.
Yeah.
So if there's a way to make your concern more clear, we're excluding teachers with the endorsements and all of the endorsements, the elementary, the early childhood educator, and the special ed educator. We took that feedback and excluded them, and after schools. But if there's more programs that you think we need to include, we'd be open to that, because I think we are in agreement about who we're trying to regulate and who we're not trying to regulate. I don't think that's
right.
So if you have recommendations because you know the world better than I do, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, the term licensed educator is throughout statute and throughout rules. So I don't know if there's a general way to say that this does not apply to any law or regulation rule where the term licensed educator appears.
And while that meets the policy, it doesn't meet the clarity to the communities, to the families, and to the parents. It just doesn't.
Okay, can I ask one other question?
Sure.
And I also just say, I think we're kind of getting into like a debate now at this point, so I'm not getting like any new information.
Okay.
So I kind of look to our legal counsel a little bit more to the questions that have been raised at this point. That's just actually what I want to say. So
If I can clarify too, my license as an early childhood educator is through age 6. So not all early childhood educators have gone through training through grade 8.
Okay.
And the funding, the last piece had to do with funding.
The recommendation.
And that's really just to be sure that the law is very clear around who this applies to and who it doesn't.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. I really appreciate your time. One more witness, I think, today. I'm sorry, I know you run the Association of Family Provider Daycares, but I can't.
I'm Sharon Harrington, Vermont Association for the Education of Young Children.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I couldn't remember the title of the association.
Did you want to weigh in on? No?
I would just, I'll just,
yeah, let me
Happy to share.
I'd love to.
Happy to share. So what I would just like to clarify is that the reason that your research didn't find anything on the NACI website is because that work transitioned to the Commission of Professional Excellence for Early Childhood. So all of that work is now being conducted by a much larger body than NACI. NACI is just one organization member. I think that there was public comments submitted from the commission about this related to early childhood educator language and how that connects to the unifying framework and all of the work that's been happening related to a national initiative for professionalizing early childhood education. So the resources would be on that website, not NACI's website. So I just want to clarify that that's probably why you couldn't find that. And I feel like there has been a lot of confusion and misinformation, and I feel like OPR has been really receptive to that, and the progress that's been made on this field has really come to a place of compromise from the folks that have really expressed strong opinions. And I think that the clarity of the setting regulated by a child development division is very clear. I really appreciated your comments earlier today about, like when my children were in school, they referred to their teachers, and what early childhood educators who are working in private programs are seeking is recognition for the important work that they're doing with brain development and also a willingness to be accountable. I mean, I think that this is part of the anxiety is that we're changing the thought process of regulating a program, a licensed program, to individual responsibility and preparation. And if we're talking about a future where young children from birth all the way through, have well prepared, well qualified, and hopefully well compensated early childhood educators, that's the future. This is the tension is now when things are uncertain and unclear and everyone wants all the answers. And I'm learning a lot about the legislative process and the making, as you sort of described, what comes in is not what goes out. It's going to change again and again and again. And I am experiencing that. And I feel like this is important progress. This is, we are really getting to a place where we can think about clear pathways for people who want to work with the very youngest children who may never choose to work in public education. And, I know lots of stories of early childhood educators who worked in private programs who actually were unable to work in public schools because they couldn't pass the praxis. They couldn't, someone who was, a Dean's List student who owned their own private program, like nursery school, we're talking dating me now, that took the praxis 3-4 times, sent thousands of dollars, and were never able to do that. And she was an amazing, amazing early childhood educator. And if we're talking about having a sufficient workforce and qualified people, we have to change something. And so I'm comfortable. I mean, we are honoring those people who are, living it right now with this legacy pathway. And we're being respectful of the important role of an AOE endorsement. I think that there's, it's easy to pick things out of all of the different pieces of it that resonate with an individual, but when we're talking about the big picture, I think this is really about making a difference in the big picture. I don't know if that's what you want to hear.
Yeah, no,
It's exactly what I wanted to hear.
I thought it was perfect. And I just have to say, we wouldn't be in this place if education, the world of education, had valued early childhood education 80 years ago, because these all would be publicly educated and they would have all been licensed as educators 50, 80, 100 years ago. And our system didn't value early childhood education, quite frankly, not enough to actually pay them a unionized, civilized wage beginning from zero on up. So it's on us. This is rectifying something that we failed to do until we all were educated about how important it is from 0 to 7. And, I think we're in some ways having to fix the problem that our world created by undervaluing early childhood education.
So if I could suggest for those, again, that watch our testimony, and I think this is already posted on the website. So the revised, what was it, Katie, 2.1?
That was 1.2.
1.2 version of S119 is up on the website. Please share it with all the folks that you know that are still concerned and not super comfortable. And at some point, maybe next week, we're gonna have to make a decision as to how to go forward with this.
Yeah.
We have the OPR bill to attach it to, so, I hate to keep putting it off, but I've often found that the more time you give people and the more they can read and understand what is in the bill and not what people tell them is in the bill, the better off people are. There'll certainly be angst. I understand that. There's no way to ever create something that's 100% infallible and it'll never be modified or amended later on. But I want to get to a place where what we've done here is the best work we can do, and then allow our counterparts on the other chamber to begin their work, and maybe they'll find something we didn't think about. I don't know.
What an idea.
That's happened before.
We keep the OPR bill and then we pass it, so then we're going to conference committee, I assume, right?
Well,
They could come back and forth for a bit.
yeah, because we technically will have changed the OPR bill, so yeah, it's gonna be conference.
It'll go back. It might just go back.
Does that sound fair? I mean, I hope it does. I don't know how else to.
I think it sounds great. And look how
Okay.
improved it's been already.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we're making great strides.
And this is a policy decision.
Yeah. And I really appreciate it. This is a strike all and not an amendment. Katie, thank you.
Okay, thank you all. We'll take this up again next week.
Great.
Committee, do we have time to vote out the, not Williston Charter, Morrisville Charter?
Yes.
Before our final,
They're waiting to like.
oh, wonderful.
You're what?
Waiting to testify.
The select board chairs on Zoom.
Oh, great.
Good.
Don,
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you very much.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, all you teachers. We love and adore it.
So I see Don McDowell on the screen. Welcome in, and we intend to vote this out today, so we're waiting for any testimony that would help in that regard. I understand you're chair of the Morristown Select Board.
We
Welcome.
can't see you, Don, or hear you.
There you go.
Hello.
So welcome in, and the floor is yours, sir. Don,
He's not muted.
can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I just had to turn my microphone on.
Okay, so we're going to continue to work on the bill if we have to, or I have a feeling we're going to vote it up today.
Okay, great.
So is there anything you wanted to add? I don't know whether you saw the testimony from David Yakimon last week, Yakimoni last
Saudi.
bless you, on Tuesday or not, but
I didn't see it myself, but I did get a briefing from my vice chair, and he seemed very, very happy with it. Yeah.
What?
all right. And was Sarah going to join us, or?
Yeah, Sarah's going to join us at 3 o'clock. That was the last we had
Oh.
heard, so I just signed on early. She's ready to
Okay.
deliver that PowerPoint, which I think was sent to Jillian.
Oh.
Don, I like
There's
your
a PowerPoint on a charter. Wow. That might be the first time we've ever had a PowerPoint on a charter.
Well, our town clerk's very thorough.
Okay.
You probably know her mother, Linda Martin.
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
sure.
my God, we love Linda Martin. I was in Linda Martin's class.
Oh, okay.
We came in together.
Well, Sarah Haskins was in my class.
Oh,
I mean, Don, I'll tell you, we are not divided on this question, I
No.
don't think. I think we're all very supportive, and I don't think we want to be rude and not hear the presentation, but we're ready to vote in favor of it. I don't know your thoughts on.
We can wait maybe another 2 minutes for Sarah, and then is there a way for you to text her or let her know that?
I can certainly get in contact with her too. I don't
Okay.
think Sarah's feelings are not going to be hurt. I know she's in a MDF, Morristown Development Fund meeting right now. And
so you'd have to step away.
so I think she'll be fine. So if you have no questions for us, then
No.
I would say proceed.
Okay, great. And thank her for her patience, and because I know we had originally wanted to get you on at 2:30, but our floor session ran a little bit lengthy, and so we didn't get here in time. So
Could she perhaps send?
Yes,
you can-
Send the presentation, because we'll be recording.
whoever presents it would love to have it, so that would be great. And please tell Sarah to give a big hello to her mother, Linda. And
Okay.
I love your pears behind you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Those are my wife picked those up years ago.
It's a great painting.
By the way, I tilted away from them a little bit.
Oh, no, it's great. It's a great back.
Okay, so if you want to stick with us, you'll hear the vote here in just 2 seconds.
I'll stick around.
I'll entertain a motion to favorably accept the approval of the adoption of the Charter of the Town of Morristown as presented to us by the House.
So moved.
Read the,
Okay, we have a roll call here. Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Senator Hurt, yes. Senator
See, oh,
VOC is not here.
well, she will,
She will be.
Yeah.
Senator White
Yes.
and Senator Collier.
yes. So I'm sure it'll go out 5-0-0. Don, you can tell Sarah that. And I think I volunteered to be the reporter on the floor of the bill, so if you're really interested, you probably, let's see, today's Thursday. It'll go on notice tomorrow. It'll be on the floor on Tuesday of next week for a final approval.
Great. Okay, thank you. Is that
Okay.
Senator Collmore, by the way, from Rutland?
Yes,
Were you a hockey referee by any chance?
he still is.
Yeah,
He
I-
still is.
I still can ref a
Well,
little.
this is Don McDowell. Hopefully it won't change your vote, but I was the head coach at Stowe High School for several years.
Oh, okay, yeah, Don, now I do recognize you when you mention it, yes.
But I
Yeah.
won't take any more of your time. Listen, folks, thank you very much. I will be sure to let Sarah know what's going on.
Okay, great. Thank you, Don.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay,
I'll
bye-bye.
let you put it on.
I will. Thank you.